My husband, who is 5 years younger than me, is babyish and craves excessive affection. He gets moody if he's not the center of attention. Eventually, he even got jealous of our newborn son. When my anger exploded, I left him and went back to my parents' house. So, what's my overly affectionate husband going to do now? I'm Maria. I'm 35 years old and a new mom to a 2-year-old boy. My husband, Daniel, is 35 years younger than me. We got married 4 years ago when I was 31 and Daniel was 26. I used to work as a truck driver for a local transportation company. I was born and raised in a rural area where you couldn't get by without a car, so I got my license as soon as I could. I found out that I liked driving more than I thought I would, and it felt like my calling. So, after high school, I joined a transportation company. At first, I delivered small packages with a mini truck, but eventually, I wanted more. I got my CDL Class A2 and started driving bigger trucks. Thanks to my strong physique, I often got the same recognition as the male drivers. As the eldest of 4 siblings, with 3 younger brothers, I was always the dependable big sister and popular among the girls. Some men said I was comforting like a mom, which I didn't appreciate. Who would be happy to be called mom-like by men more than 10 years older than them? Men who think women should just smile and nod at their stories and that it benefits them to do so didn't like me. But I wouldn't want those kinds of men anyway. So, at the transportation company, I was both liked and feared. Daniel, who would later become my husband, graduated from college and became a company employee, but he quit due to the toxic work environment and a spiteful boss. Then, he joined our company as a driver. Even transportation companies have bad bosses and annoying coworkers, but we were lucky to have a friendly office. We usually can't go out drinking due to the job, but we sometimes go out together before a day off. Daniel's welcome party was also held at a nearby bar. I heard you're a veteran driver, Maria. That's so cool. I remember him saying that. Daniel is just a bit taller than me, but he's skinny, and I clearly outweigh him. He's not handsome, but with his clean look and hairstyle, he gives off a handsome impression. He often hung around me when he started working, so I took care of him. I couldn't see Daniel, who was the same age as my youngest brother, as a romantic interest at first. Do you have a boyfriend, Maria? One day, Daniel asked me. No, not right now. I was already 30. In my mid-20s, I had considered marrying someone, but I found out he was a mama's boy, so I called it off. Since then, I've found it bothersome to get married or date men. Most of the men who approach me seem to be looking for a mother figure. Can I be a candidate then? He said it straight, and I didn't feel bad about it, but I didn't want to get involved in office romance or be accused of seducing a younger guy. Well, Daniel, you're the same age as my youngest brother. It's hard to see you as a romantic partner. Then test me. If you don't like me, I'll give up. I don't dislike you. If I did, I wouldn't take care of you. Great. Then let's go on a date. A date. Daniel is sociable and somewhat forcefully invited me out, and soon we started going places together on our days off. We visited zoos, aquariums, amusement parks, went bowling, watched baseball games, and sometimes even went to circuits to watch races. As we kept dating, I grew fond of the friendly Daniel and eventually we became romantically involved. I no longer saw him as a little brother. We tried to keep it a secret at work, but Daniel wasn't good at hiding things, so our colleagues quickly found out. So Maria likes younger guys, huh? My boss is Tom, who had been looking out for me since I joined the company, said that. He was a supervisor back then, but is now the section manager. It's not that I like them. I just get along with that type. Maria, you're reliable. I've been told I'm reliable and dependable since I was a kid, but I've never been called cute or someone you want to protect. I came to accept that and even tried to act more masculine. Daniel, on the other hand, said, "Maria, you're powerful and really cool. You're handsome." I guess he meant it as a compliment, but it's not something you usually say to a woman. Still, I didn't feel bad about it. Daniel might be a bit unreliable, but he's good at his job, personable, and knows how to get along with people. After dating for about a year, when Daniel proposed, I had no reason to refuse. When we went to a family meeting at Daniel's house, his mother, Catherine, said, "You seem like a very dependable woman." It was hard to tell if it was a compliment. "Daniel is an only child and a bit spoiled, but please take care of him." I decided to take it as acceptance of me as a reliable marriage partner. We didn't want a wedding or reception, so we had a party at a rented restaurant. It was just a drinking party. Our honeymoon wasn't overseas. We spent 2 nights and 3 days relaxing at a luxury hotel. Even after getting married, I continued working. Daniel would do the cleaning, laundry, shopping, anything I asked him to do. But he would never do them without being told. He had been used to his mother doing everything for him, so it couldn't be helped. At least he did what I asked. However, Daniel turned out to be more babyish and craved excessive affection more than I had thought. He always wanted to cling to me. Honestly, I'm not very good at physical affection, so when I tried to come up with reasons to get away from him, he would immediately sulk. When we were together, if he wasn't the center of attention, he would get grumpy. When we watched TV together and I said, "This actor is handsome," he would blatantly become unhappy. Then he would start bad-mouthing the actor. I couldn't stand that. Even so, our newlywed life was enjoyable enough. Until I got pregnant and had a child. When I found out I was pregnant, I kept it a secret for a while. I wanted to keep working, and I also wanted a child, so I was unsure what to do. Transportation is undeniably a tough job for women. There are clearly more male drivers, and it's not an easy workplace for women, especially those with children. I told my boss, Tom, about my pregnancy when I was already 5 months along and in the stable period. "Congratulations. But don't push yourself too hard while you're pregnant. What if something happened? The company would also be held accountable." I got scolded. But if I could make an excuse, I think pregnant women commuting by packed trains every day have it harder. I commute by car and work in a truck. Loading and unloading are tough, but with a dolly, I manage. That's because you're sturdy, Maria. When my wife found out she was pregnant, she said she felt unwell and couldn't do much around the house. Morning sickness varies from person to person. Anyway, now that I know, I can't let you continue working as you are. What? Am I getting fired? I panicked, but that wasn't the case. Of course not. You're a valuable asset to us, Maria. Tom laughed. He asked me to handle internal duties until I gave birth, so I could work until just before the delivery. The internal duties involved dispatching drivers via radio, not office work. We also want to increase the number of female drivers in our company. More customers are asking for female drivers, and we plan to improve the environment, so don't push yourself too hard. Although our transportation company was medium-sized, the president had a surprisingly progressive mindset. I would be happy if we could create a workplace where female drivers could work comfortably. That night, I told Daniel about my pregnancy and work situation, but instead of being happy, he got quite upset. "Why did you tell the company before me? And deciding to keep working without consulting me? Do you think I'm unreliable?" I really was at fault for this. I should have told him first. Solving everything on my own is both my strength and my weakness. I apologized profusely and managed to get him to calm down. After that, the drivers said I was precise but scary, as I worked until just before the delivery. The company set up a daycare on site with a mobile home. One of the driver's wives, who had a daycare license, agreed to help part-time. When we advertised, welcoming female drivers with daycare available, Tom was delighted to receive a large number of applications. Now I could work and raise my child. I thought everything was going well. I safely gave birth to a baby boy. Is this really my kid? Daniel didn't seem very happy and didn't try to get involved in child-rearing. On the contrary, he would get grumpy whenever I took care of the baby. Could he possibly be unhappy because he wasn't the center of my attention? But he's a father. How could he be jealous of his own child? It seemed ridiculous, but I tried to avoid making Daniel unhappy. While I had helped my mother take care of my 3 younger brothers, taking care of a baby was new to me. Feeding every 3 hours made me realize how hard being a mother was, and I appreciated my own mother even more. Babies can only express themselves by crying, so they cry a lot. Each time, Daniel would say, "It's noisy," and get grumpy. Of course, he wouldn't try to soothe the baby. When I picked up the baby to calm him down, Daniel would say, "There you go again. The baby gets all the attention while I'm always ignored." When I was breastfeeding, he even said, "Great, now the baby has taken over. That used to be mine." I was dumbfounded. Why don't you start acting like a father? He's your child, you know. I know, but boys aren't cute. If only it were a girl. What is this man even saying? One time, after giving birth, we were cuddling for the first time in a while. Our son started crying, and when I went to soothe him, Daniel yelled, "Who do you care about more, me or the baby?" and threw the remote. Luckily, it didn't hit our son, but I never expected him to say something like that. I was too shocked to respond. If I did, of course, I would have said, "The baby." Daniel, being an only child, didn't like my family. I thought it was because there were too many people and he felt uneasy, but it might be more than that. Maybe he didn't like not being the center of attention. "Maria, he looks just like you." When I visited my family, my brothers crowded around the baby, making a fuss. I had brought the baby right after giving birth, but newborns don't really resemble anyone. Now that he could hold his head up and was more stable, our son looked just like me. My family is a big one, with my parents, my 3 brothers, their wives, and their children all living together. You might think it's tough, but it's not. That's because the first brother's wife's friends married the other 2 younger brothers. They were friends from the start, so they get along well even after marriage. My mom is an easygoing person, so everyone says what they want and gets along. 2 years ago, my 3 brothers cooperated to build a house. When I started complaining angrily, my brothers and their wives all began to give their opinions. Taking care of a baby is hard, so it's natural that the husband gets pushed aside a bit. They said, "We understand, but it still feels isolating," my brothers admitted. But eventually, when the baby starts talking and calls you dad, you'll feel happy and become more aware of being a father. That was the conclusion. I thought that might be the case, and decided to give Daniel a bit more leeway for a while. I dedicated myself to childcare until our child turned 1, then returned to work as a dispatcher. I was eager to drive again, but I was grateful to work near my child. I didn't intend to neglect my husband, but honestly, my son was incredibly cute. It was amazing how much I adored this little being who looked just like me. But raising a child with a father who doesn't love them is tough. Daniel says he would have liked a girl, but who knows if he's serious. Besides, there's no guarantee the next child will be a girl. Even now, Daniel acts so childish that it's hard to tell who the real child is. Imagining what it would be like after having a second child gave me a headache. I found myself sighing more often. That evening, as usual, I cooked dinner while feeding our son his baby food. Daniel seemed annoyed that I was tending to our son throughout the meal. Then he suddenly said, "I want to marry a new woman instead of old Maria." I thought it was just another one of his ploys, but my patience had reached its limit. "I might just divorce you and remarry a younger woman. If there was such a woman, I would be totally fine with that. There are plenty of younger and cuter women." "Sure, there are. I'm already 35, and I've never been called cute or lovable." I couldn't imagine a young and cute woman putting up with someone who craves so much attention. "Fine. Then leave." "What? You want a divorce, right? This was my apartment to begin with, so go ahead and leave." "Wait a minute. No way. Women get so emotional." He tried to pass it off as a joke, with a strained smile. "I'm not emotional at all. You want to remarry a young, cute woman, right? Go ahead." "Come on, it was a joke. Just what?" "I just feel lonely because you're always focused on the baby." A mother prioritizing her child is natural. The baby can't survive without care. Daniel, you're an adult. You can survive without being taken care of. That's so harsh. I rarely get angry, so he was probably surprised. A grown man was tearing up. I felt no sympathy. Instead, I was angry. "If you won't leave, then I will. I'm not asking for alimony, but you should at least pay child support." As I quickly packed my belongings and prepared to leave with my son, he pleaded, "Don't go, Maria. Are you abandoning me?" He tried to cling to me as he said that. Ignoring him, I left and went back to my parents' house. That does sound annoying. "Maria, you can manage on your own, even with a child. Men just don't get it. No matter how dependable a woman is, she wants to be cared for sometimes." "That's right. Being a single mother is tough." "Maria, stay here as long as you like. Why not just move back here permanently?" When I explained the situation to my family, my brothers and their wives all started talking at once. As I expected, the women in this house are stronger. Since my 3 brothers built the house together, it has 3 stories and plenty of rooms. They even installed an elevator, thinking about our parents' old age. There are 7 children between the ages of 3 and 10, so my son would have playmates, and the wives, who work part-time, and my mother, or someone else, is always around. It's a great environment for raising a child. Even though I moved out of the apartment and back to my parents' house, Daniel and I still worked at the same place. I'd like to return to driving since my family is helping with childcare. My boss, Tom, readily agreed. I had been eager to return to driving, and being out on deliveries meant I would see less of Daniel. When I spotted him from a distance, I quickly got into my car or went to the bathroom to avoid him. If I did run into him at the office, I completely ignored his attempts to talk. About 10 days later, Tom asked, "Is something wrong? Daniel's been off his game lately. We've been getting a lot of complaints about him." Even from a distance, I had noticed he looked much thinner and pale. He was reportedly making mistakes, delivering the wrong packages, and behaving poorly with customers. Reluctantly, I explained the situation to Tom. "This is problematic. No matter what's going on, you can't let personal issues affect your work. If this continues, one of you might have to leave. I'm sorry for the trouble. I'll talk to him." Daniel might be the one to lose his job due to his mistakes, but that would be unpleasant. Moreover, if we were to divorce, we'd need to handle it properly. I need to talk to you. When I spoke to Daniel as he was getting ready to leave, he spun around to face me. Finally, you're talking to me. He looked at me with tearful eyes. Daniel, you've lost a lot of weight. Are you eating properly? Are you worried about me? I lost my appetite after you left, and cooking is a hassle. You should have gone back to your parents' house. I had assumed Daniel would quickly go home to have Catherine take care of him. But if I went back home, it would have felt like the end for us. That might be true. If we both returned to our parents, it could mean divorce. Those puppy dog eyes looking at me are manipulative. If it was going to come to this, why did he say those things? Bringing personal issues into work and making mistakes is unacceptable. Shouldn't you be working hard to remarry a young, cute woman? It might have been a bit mean, but I was hurt too. There is no such woman. I need Maria. This isn't a conversation we should be having at work. The drivers and office staff were trying to eavesdrop from a distance. Just do your job properly. If you can become someone I can rely on, maybe I'll reconsider. I quickly left the office after saying that. My brothers teased. If you're waiting for Daniel to become reliable, you'll be waiting until he's over 60. After that, Daniel visibly put in a lot of effort at work. 3 months later, Tom said, "Isn't it time to forgive him?" But even if we lived together again, there was no guarantee he wouldn't repeat the same behavior. I couldn't bring myself to live with someone who didn't love our son as a father should. Half a year after our separation, on a Sunday, Daniel suddenly showed up at my parents' house. His head was completely shaved. What happened to your hair? I was trying to figure out how to show I'm truly sorry. This was all I could think of. I'm really sorry. He deeply apologized at the entrance. It must have been a big decision for Daniel, who always maintained a handsome appearance with his hairstyle. And it didn't suit him at all. I almost laughed and, to cover it up, I said to my son in my arms, "That's Dad. Isn't his head funny?" Then, my son, who had just started to speak, reached out to Daniel and said, "Dad." Daniel's face at that moment was priceless. Is he calling me Dad? It seems so. Even if you're distant, he still thinks of you as his father. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for being a terrible father. As Daniel took our son from me and hugged him, I couldn't help but cry. This was the sight I had longed to see. Will you come back? Daniel asked cautiously while holding our son. Are you someone I can rely on now? I was embarrassed to be seen crying, so I said it like that. Maybe not yet, but... All right. I have one condition. If you accept it, I will consider getting back together. Anything. I'll accept any condition to make things right. Daniel's expression brightened. The condition I gave was for Daniel to live with me at my parents' house. I had already talked to my family about the possibility. My parents, brothers, and their wives were supportive and said they would help in any way they could. They might have just found it amusing. When I brought it up, Daniel looked scared and anxious before softly saying, "Okay." It must have been a big adjustment for him. He had been spoiled as an only child. Even after we got married, I had spoiled him. But in this house, with many children needing attention, there was no room to pamper an adult man. In the beginning, Daniel was scared and lost. He couldn't cling to me in front of the kids. But gradually, things changed. He realized that being needed and cared for was not a bad feeling. Even though no one clung to him, there was always someone around to talk to or have a drink with. Eventually, his feelings of loneliness disappeared. My brother's wives gave him strict lessons. The baby is crying. Diaper. What? Maria. Maria will. You're the father. Do it yourself. It seems I can trust my brother's wives to handle his growth as a father. By the way, I remember wanting siblings as a kid. I never imagined I'd suddenly have 6. Daniel said cheerfully as he prepared for the next day. My brothers were planning to take the kids fishing. My sisters-in-law and I planned to leave the 2 youngest with our parents and enjoy shopping and lunch. I had never been interested in fashion, but thanks to my sisters-in-law, I started to enjoy it. Maria, you look great in these clothes because you're tall, they said, enjoying themselves. I lost about 22 pounds after giving birth, and I found that I could wear almost anything. In my late 30s, I started to enjoy dressing up. You've been looking quite beautiful lately. Daniel's compliment didn't feel bad at all. Daniel, you've become a reliable father. After everything, our family is happy and united now. Soon, we might have another addition to our big family.